How do I say welcome in Dutch?
Welkom.
Welcome. Oh,
Ja, welkom.
welcome.
Wow, I just realized now there's an
Yeah. Yes. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So excited to be here.
Yes.
Share however long this conversation is. The most important foundational question: what is something that most people don't know about you guys? Yeah. And you can go individual and a mentee.
Okay.
Let's.
something that people don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. That can go in a lot of different
Good
directions.
warm-up question. Yeah. Oh shit.
Well, one thing that comes to mind, this first thing that comes to mind is actually something that you mentioned yesterday in the workshop, is that most people would think I don't have a lot of fire and see me as a cute, soft girl, and then it turns out I have a lot of fire.
A lot of fire.
Sometimes a bit too much.
Leo Moon.
Yeah, I would say that's one thing that people might not know about me.
Love.
First thing that comes to mind.
That's great. That's great. I mean, if people see you dance, you can tell surely. But I love that. Thank you.
In my case, I think most people don't actually know that I can be pretty introverted, like a bit quiet. Like I'm pretty.
True.
I'm very calm at home. I'm like, I don't need to talk. I can talk a lot, but when I'm chilled, I'm pretty quiet. I'm like very calm.
What's your ideal Friday night? I think that says the introvert and extrovert. No more.
Depending on the week. If I had a very busy week, I like to on Fridays. But if I had a chill week, for me, like just being at home, couch, gaming basically with my partners, like,
You're like
playing role play games like together and be like and just nerd out.
board games or video?
Video.
Video.
But board games,
There's a vibe.
there's a vibe.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons is gonna be a thing.
Yeah. Bring it back. Love.
And I think in a mentee, like for a mentee, what most people don't know is I think that we are actually pretty big dorks together. Like
Yes.
like we look very cool on the outside, but we're very big dorks. We make very dry jokes. We have a lot of dad jokes going around. We nerd around things. Sometimes we are like collectively socially awkward, like all together. Like we come home and we like navigate between, did you feel that and this and that. And then from the outside we look like very cool and everything, but we're just a bunch of misfits who found each other and
Oh my god.
navigate through life together, basically. Yeah.
Making weird normal.
Yes.
Love that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. So I'll already have introed Amenti, like who you are, what you are. But Amenti's 9 years old last week?
Yeah. 1st of April.
Yeah.
If Amenti was a 9-year-old being,
Yeah.
the soul, the spirit, for people who haven't had the pleasure to be in your space, what's the personality of this? Yeah.
That's a good one. Amenti is a girl.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt it.
So she's
Yeah.
a 9-year. Yeah, she's 9 she's 9 very hard now.
What star sign is she?
She's like, I think Amenti would be a very fiery kid who is very brave, courageous, likes to challenge things head on, is sometimes misunderstood or like a bit. I'm not gonna say like feared, but there's a little bit of towards it. But very loving. She's a kid that believes in direct form of love through honesty, and I think that is the way that she brings love through truth, through honesty. Actually, very direct, and since it's not in a way that is often seen, it can be misunderstood very easily. But it's a form of direct honest love, willing to do better and to do better for the people who she encounters with, actually. I think that would be it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
If you had to distill Amenti's mission, what would you, like if it was on its deathbed and it was like, wow, I'm proud of.
It differs because we also, I mean, it started with me and Leah, and the more people come in, it collectively it kind of molds a bit. So it has missions like side missions, side quests from different people. Actually, see, that's the gamer in me, the role-playing gamer. There's a side quest infused a bit, and I think it differs for each person why they are also in Amenti, actually, because each one of us has a different reason why they are in Amenti. But for me, it is most definitely if people just connected a lot better with their bodies and with themselves, and just leave the world better as it was before, then mission is already accomplished. And in what shape or way? I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with, and she will grow and she will become something bigger than us. Like even if we just parented her, it will have her own will, her own trajectory, and in 10 years she will be an adult.
Yeah.
And what she's gonna be doing then is
Yeah.
something we're gonna find out. But for me, if it becomes bigger than just us, and other people can contribute towards her energy, I'm
It's beyond you.
Proud parent.
Yes, yes, it's beyond. But that's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the first word that definitely comes to mind is also connection, for people to find this true, deeper connection to themselves, and especially also the parts that maybe in the beginning they're not so familiar with or that they push away. And also finding this deeper connection to each other. And there's a lot of disconnect happening in the world on a huge scale, and I think through the body as something as quote-unquote simple as the body that we all have, that we all carry with us every day, to find connection through that is really something beautiful, powerful, and that's what brought me personally in Amenti, and that's also what what keeps my fire burning, let's say, to see that connection, what happens with people. So that's from my side what I would say.
Yeah, so like the thread is coming back to the body and leaving the world a better place.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many reasons, but if you're going to distill it to one, why are we so disconnected from our bodies and the world if we're not looking after her?
It's if we grew healthy in a sick society, then there will be something terribly wrong with us. If society is sick, it produces sick children. If the mother is sick, it produces sick children. So I think it's a direct result of society, of how we've been brought up. There's a lot of disconnection in general happening. It's a lot of mind, specifically in the West. What we noticed also by traveling, it's not necessarily everywhere the same, and that's also with the Western standard. Like I really realized, like I thought it was everywhere. But depending on which part of the world you are, there's different collective struggles. For example, in Japan, no is a thing. Not being able to say no is a thing. Like I ask, like, how do you say no? And people are like,
It's not really a thing. They
and
say.
you're like, what? Which is completely different in the West because there's a lot of no's. Very interesting.
Yeah.
No. But I think in the West there's a lot of emphasis on the mind, in the head, and we live up here actually. A lot of school-wise and society-wise, the majority of values being given of how well you can cognitive do things, basically, how well you can calculate things, and I truly believe somewhere that capitalism survives in the mind space, not in the body that much, because somatically we need to connect with people. Like we need touch, we need to connect with people, and in capitalism and in the mind, and in the ego, we can easily be disconnected from other. We think it's only us, and I think that's a direct result of society, basically. And to be embodied is also let's say, a little threat to the individual. Because we notice that we naturally come together through the soma. We communicate through touch, and that already creates connection. And by just, for example, just by speaking, we can always have this distance. And I think that is one of the underlying roots of the disconnection happening, and not so much space for the spirit, for the body, but the hyper focus on the mind. And I believe that this is the trifecta: the body, the mind, and the spirit. And just focusing on one aspect actually, disconnects us from the other two. And that's from the West, basically, in my opinion. Yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, one thing I just thought about also when you mentioned Japan is like you see very much this difference of the focus on the individual or the focus on the collective, and how that also brings differences in how people are connected within their own bodies and to each other or not. These differences are very interesting to see. Yeah, we notice that where we go and where we do the workshops, it really has different outcomes and different reactions to people.
And I can imagine, I mean, we'll go into the movement method, but like an element would be really important in one country and then not as important in another. But what I'm hearing is like a hyper individualistic way of thinking, which is innately stripped of the innate need to be with community, with tribe, and this collective forgetting, which is passed down. And it's like, if you were born into that, there's no way for you to actually remember until you come back to the wisdom that's beyond the people around you. And the mind, for me, it's incredible. It can print out and create so much, but it's limited. You can't access, for me, like spirit through the mind as much, whilst like intuition or just heart or body, you can tap into things beyond.
Exactly.
And that's where the reparation, that remembrance is going to come in.
Exactly. See, in my case, for example, I already had this upbringing of collectiveness from my roots. Like I grew up as a Cape Verdean, so there's a lot of family, a lot of collectiveness as well. And growing up in the Netherlands, when I went outside of my house, it was individual. And when I went back inside, family. So I always describe like I lived in between worlds, and I always felt this disconnect of, I always try to bring what I got home outside, but that often got misunderstood. And I think a lot of children, for example, of migrants actually experience that too, like kind of like moving in two different realms, where you have this knowledge of family, community, but you also need to code switch into, okay, I need to be me again. And sometimes that internally there can be a conflict between those two. And I notice a difference between different cultures as well, where most people, for example, we have an interesting example in the Netherlands. For example, when you come and have dinner, she knows exactly where I'm going. Like she knows exactly where I'm going. Really when you have that, it's mad. It's really mad. Weird, It's mad. So for example, when you go to you have dinner, you go to doesn't matter, Turkish, Moroccan, Spanish, whatever background that person has. You have dinner, and as a kid, you play with them. It's dinner time. You get a plate. You just eat along. After you finish your dinner, you spend some time with your friend, and then you go home. But in certain parts, and specifically in the rural parts of the Netherlands, when it is dinner time and you play with your friend, the parents come in and send you home. Or place you in a different room because the Dutch family is going to have dinner. Which is baffling.
Wait, so they're playing, and then instead of inviting in food,
Yep.
Is it because they don't have enough, or because you're different? Like, I don't get it.
Exactly. No, it's just a cultural difference. Like, we eat as a family. You go home and have your own food.
Family.
Yeah. Very, very individualistic.
Yeah.
And this is like a little Dutch.
Whoa.
I know.
Do you feel, is that coming from scarcity, or is that coming from the belief that it's like, oh, you have your own family?
Yes.
What? Oh God.
So there's like little nuances and differences that
Yeah.
like you have to navigate through, basically. And Netherlands is a very small country, so there are certain cities, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, that are very diverse. So it's kind of already mixed in. But if you go to the rural parts, it's suddenly you have a completely different experience. And to navigate through that, I think that's one of the reasons why community or coming in unity, I often say that in general, white people have a hard time coming in unity. And it's something that society-wise has been taken away from them, which people from the global south naturally have been doing for a longer time as well. And that kind of now backfires a bit. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is why you're pulling in so many different modalities and ideologies, like somatic work, shamanism, hip hop culture, dance, to bring people back, no matter where we've been, I guess, like fractured in our connection to the whole.
Yeah.
And then one of them will offer something.
Exactly.
Like what, for me, like what makes it so different, like, for example, being rooted in hip hop culture. Can you explain how does hip hop support this remembering of the collective?
Yeah.
So as individuals, we have a dance background, and we come from hip hop culture, from different styles and dance styles within the hip hop culture, street and club styles. So when Gilles, with time, brought the movement method, you can see also because of his background that these somatic codes and this sense of coming in unity and this sense of coming together out of urgency, out of this essence of celebration, out of the a certain activism as well in this music, in this dance that moves through in what is now the movement method. It is very much ingrained in what the baby that he created, basically. And whatever style you look at, I don't really want to call it styles, but whether it's hip hop or popping or house or all these different cultures, because they're cultures as well, like they come from different places and different times, but they have a similar urgency of why they were created. And this is the beautiful and the powerful thing. And this is, I think, also the core essence that is still coming back in what we do now. We uphold these pillars still in what we do now.
So why was it created?
An urgency to actually cope with reality. Specifically in the States, like in the 70s and 80s, the Jim Crow was just, let's say, abolished. like let's say on paper, but structural racism, classism, sexism was still very, very present. So, for example, if you look at the club culture, voguing, for example, was born out of a necessity to create their own safe haven because they got rejected in normal clubs. So they created their own space out of a necessity to create community and safeness, specifically, for example, for the LGBTQ community in that time where they could actually just flourish without the need to survive constantly. If you look at Crump, that's developed, Crump and clowning that's developed in LA in the 90s after the era of extreme police brutality, which is different than, for example, in the other parts of the States. In LA and in California, they upheld a bit more of a violent approach to minorities. So a lot of physical beatings, and which kind of has its roots from the South, like from that era, lynching, publicly lynching. So that's why, for example, Crump and clowning is a bit more physical. Like they actually catharsize the beating, the whips. Buck, for example, is a terminology that comes actually also from these plantations. Buck breaking, for example, is actually the masculinization of the alpha male, so to speak. Yeah. So they would publicly break down the tribe leader so that all other males would be more dormant. And that's buck breaking, for example.
Whoa.
So there's a lot of terminologies that actually got passed over in these hip hop styles, and the beautiful part of it is that it's the same analogy as the rose that grew from concrete. Like there's not much, but there's still like a little seed that can still sprout through all the hardships, where people could come together and actually naturally, from the essence, collectively found a way to catharsize their collective pain. And that is, for me, the biggest somatic practice there is. Like, we can go into books and understand and this and this and this, but they literally did it collectively, because there's not one person that started a whole style or a culture. It's always a group of people. So if there's such a big necessity of people coming together without, like, let's say, academic knowledge, but still create so much gold, that speaks volumes for me. And I also always give my respects to my OGs, to the elders of my scene, to my teachers as well. And I'm a kid of the hip hop house in the Netherlands. So that literally translates, called Hip Hop House, which was a cultural hip hop center in Rotterdam, which saved my life, basically. Hip hop saved my life, and specifically Hip Hop House saved my life, because I was a 15-year-old kid growing up in the poorest neighborhood in the Netherlands, playing soccer with like needles and stuff. And that became my second home. And Aruna Vermeulen, she literally had this mission, and we're like, she says, like, Amenti feels like the kid of Hip Hop House again. Wow. And she had this mission to bring hip hop to the youth, and she had this personal quest that she said, I don't want to raise illiterate or dumb dancers. So she always brought the knowledge aspect of hip hop. See, I met Martha Cooper when I was 17, 18, the photographer who documented hip hop. She brought them over. So there was a lot of teachers that she brought over who actually gave the knowledge part of it as well. Yeah. And without Aruna, I would not be able to, basically, Amenti would not exist. Because that knowledge of self, that seed, is one of the major elements of Amenti movement, actually.
Whoa. So it's like the rose coming out of the concrete. These cultures were born from responding to isolation, ostracization, to survive and come back and come together.
Yeah.
And so, and then you're passing your thanks to these teachers that pass down the knowledge, so then you can pass that down. Yeah. And the knowledge is power, and like where's the jacket?
Oh, the jacket's right there.
Yeah. And would you call these what, like the principle? Like, what would you call them?
It's a
pathway?
It's a pathway.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder. It's a good reminder in the moments whenever we feel powerless or stuck, or we don't know how to navigate. It's a good reminder, and it goes both ways. It goes from top to bottom.
So pathway of what? And then we'll go into it. What would you call it? I mean, I guess to freedom, maybe.
Yeah, freedom, actually.
Pathway to freedom.
Yeah, basically, cool. Yeah. Freedom, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Starting with knowledge.
Yes.
So teachers passing this on to expand awareness. Knowledge into?
Power.
Power to?
Choice.
Choice to?
Responsibility.
Responsibility to?
Freedom.
Yeah. When you shared that yesterday, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I was just reflecting this morning on, because I can feel it. Where do you feel like most people kind of get to and stop? Because I have an opinion, but I want to ask you.
I like good questions. Questions. I would say in choice.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say in choice.
Yeah.
I would say in choice. I think a lot of people seek out knowledge already, and they already have this sense of power. Okay. I'm a step into a few bit. See, one of the things that I've been last couple of years have been studying. I think not even by choice, actually. but out of necessity. It really became a theme. See, I'm in a polyamorous relationship with Leal and Miriam. So we're with three. So all of us, we have 4 relationships in one. I have a relationship with Leal, I have a relationship with Miriam, Miriam and Leal have a relationship, and we have a relationship with all 3 of us.
Nice.
A lot of anniversaries. A lot of anniversaries. We just decided to have an anniversary at each season. So basically,
Nice.
but what came into mind was literally that normally with power, there is this natural transition between 2 people. So the one is more, let's say, dominant, and the other can be more submissive, so can receive more a bit. And that's a natural, like cadence. You know, normally you won't even be aware of it. One person speaking, the other person listens, etc., etc. It's even happening right now. But with the 3 of us, it doesn't happen as natural. Because it requires like a shift making. Okay, I've been a bit on the submissive side now. Now I need to make a shift because that person needs to receive now. But that shuffle is not as natural as one-on-one, for example. And what I've noticed is that when people are a bit more on the receiving end, they often think that they don't have much power. So when we think about dominance, we think about the dominance person. Well, actually, the dominance is using the power, their power, for the person to receive. And actually, the receiving end holds the most power, because the receiving end can just say no.
No, yeah.
Which is one of the most powerful things. And I think a lot of people in general are stuck in their, let's say, submissive energy, how they relate to the world. Like the world and life is giving me things, I'm just on the receiving end, rather than having a notion like I can switch in between. Personally, everybody should be a switch. It's my
I 100%.
But to give and receive things in life, and I think a lot of people are stuck in this. Life is just lifing me around.
It's happening to me.
It's happening to me rather than I'm happening to life. And if people are aware that they can say no to a lot of things, being able to say no holds power. But also, when they are aware of that power, it gives them, it separates them from the illusion that they don't have a choice. And actually, they find out that the majority of experiences that they are in is their own choosing.
And that's hard for them to swallow.
Because then it becomes your responsibility.
Wow. Yes. And I think just for people who are hearing this for the first time, knowledge, being attuned to like expanding self-awareness, and then that leading to power to, I guess, make that choice to say yes, no, whether it's in a relationship or society and things like that. And then if you make the choice to deeply listen and actually have the courage to act from that, that leads to a responsibility.
Consequences,
Which is, on the other side, it's like, oh, people might be like, I'm not happy here, but I know it.
Yes.
And also like there's a part that's like the helplessness. It's like, it's not my fault. But then they're just in that for,
exactly. And I think a lot of people mistake, like, okay, responsibility, but how does it lead to freedom? And you cannot have freedom without responsibilities, because that's carelessness. A lot of people just want to be without actually holding responsibilities for the life that you created based on the choices you made with the power you have, with the knowledge you've achieved. Because in order to live the life that you want to live in full freedom, you need to take the responsibility for that life. It's very hard to be free if, let's say, financially you're unstable. Because then you're not truly free. You're just avoiding responsibilities for the short while. And then the reality check comes back in. So stability, being rooted in the body, being anchored, is a sense of responsibility, because it's rooted in the choice that we make. But whenever we are truly balanced, we can actually truly experience freedom. And that's something that we experience more and more in Amenti because we hold a lot of responsibilities now. There's a lot of people looking up to us. But we have the freedom to go and do as you please. Me and Elia hold the most responsibility in our companies, but we also have the most freedom. Because if I ask Elia, hey, let's come to Melbourne, it can happen.
Oh no, it's on air. It's a contract.
It can happen. So it goes hand in hand in that sense.
Yeah. And I also feel like once you get the awareness of the collective and how we are one, once you get to get freedom, you have the responsibility to contribute to the remembering as a collective as well, no matter how small, if it's me helping you or me helping, like Amenti is to hundreds, thousands of people. You can't just strip yourself and be like, I'm awake now.
No.
Well, actually, if you're awake, you realize there are people suffering and you need to support that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So hip hop house.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Hip hop house? that when you were 15, they saved your life.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to go even just like a quick overview of the movement method.
Yeah.
How did that come through? And you said, the rose in the concrete. What was the concrete for you at the time?
Hey. So it has this, it started, I think the seed got planted in 2012, which is, often when I say this now, a lot of people think like, nah, this can't be it. This is too big of a coincidence. So basically I grew up with a lot of trauma already in my body. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, as you clearly can see. Grew up in poverty, in a very, it was like you have the Belmer and you have Spangen. Belmer is like the biggest ghetto in Amsterdam, and Spangen is like the biggest ghetto in Rotterdam. Specifically in the 90s and 80s, it was really rugged. Nowadays, it's pretty okay, but those areas were, like even Americans, like rappers came to Spangen and were like, okay, yeah, it's pretty rugged here.
Okay.
So I grew up in that environment. I was not allowed to dance because that was against the church. A Jehovah's Witness is a cult. I would just say it.
Yeah.
Take a shot.
Yes, but it is a cult, which a lot of rules and restrictions. I didn't celebrate my birthday for years. I didn't celebrate Christmas. I was not allowed to visit the birthday parties of my friends. I was not allowed to eat cake, etc., etc. So a lot of these different things were a part of my system. And when I decided to pursue a career in dance, I got kicked out of the house, basically. So I had to survive.
How old were you then?
17. Okay. 17, yeah. So for the 2 years, I kind of held out. I danced as a secret. My parents went to work, and then I sneaked to the hip-hop house. So I had a lot of traumas growing up as a young black man in a white country. And so I grew up pretty hard, like the conventional image of masculinity, so to say. And but I was let's say a sensitive kid. Still am. Like I'm a mama's child, like literally. Like I'm like very.
Hold me.
Yes, actually, like I used to sing Barney songs until I was 8. My big brother was like, he was like jealous of it. I was a cutie. But it all came together like on the 21st of December, 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar, where I experienced my psychosis. It's also the first day me and Leal actually hung out after school together. So the first time me and Leal hung out was me having my psychosis. I mean, like...
This story is...
Wow.
So that psychosis lasted for a couple of days.
So what triggered it?
So, in short, I was at a after party. I had a little bit of drugs in my system. But it was more of a, it's not necessarily, the drug was like the point. It was just an accumulation of a lot of things. And basically I ended like my whole, like acutely as if like right now I could see an Instagram filter came up, like suddenly, poof, and my whole perception and reality, I could kind of like describe it like being like waking up the Truman Show, where you find out like life is a lie, and you suddenly start to see things differently in a different light, but no one else is aware that you are in that state. I saw a lot of things that, physically speaking, would not make sense. See, right now I know I'm in a psychosis, but on that moment I did not know. It was a suddenly. So I did not realize that I was operating in a slightly parallel, different reality. I thought that was life then. And that lasted for 3 days with a lot of darkness, things happen. To keep it very short, the psychosis ended after I got physically beat. I got raped by a very big group of people. And all of these things eventually led to my death. And the only way I could finish my psychosis if I would accept that I already was dead. And Leal was there. I died in her arms, basically. And Leal brought me home. And when I woke up, I think like 18 or 19 hours later, I was so convinced that I was dead that I had to get used to my body again. Because it's a long process to truly accept the fact that you are dead. So when Leal brought me back home, I saw people from Cabo Verde, my family members, my old teachers passing me by, and when they looked at me, they started crying, as if it was my funeral and my soul had its last walk. And I knew, like, this is my kindergarten teacher when I was 3. There's no way I could see you on the street right now. So I quite knew already, like, okay, this is something spiritual happening. And I had no spiritual notions back then. And so I woke up, and it took me days to literally, like on a motor level, get used to, oh wait, this is my arm again. So the notion of being disconnected from my body and having that experience was such a big shock to my system. But also I grew up in an environment which was a tough city. Mental health did not exist. And somehow I had the resilience to just, okay, suck it up like nothing happened. So like a month later, I just tried to just continue like nothing happened. Suck it up. It was a weird trip, and eventually I found out that my body was keeping the score. And Leal was there, luckily, which she was present in my whole psychosis. Through that process, I could ask her things that happened in my psychosis, which did not happen in, let's say, normal life. But she could see connections that happened here, which had a completely different symbolic nature in my psychosis. And thus we could decipher together what happened, how it happened. And eventually I found out it was kind of like this dream state where there's a lot of symbolic things happening which hold different information which we could decipher. And at a certain moment I noticed that there were certain aspects, trauma, like I have rape trauma in my body, even though it did not really happen. My body registered as it is. It happened in a different reality. And from that moment on, I realized psychosis is not just something, it's not just a mental hall. It is real. But those experiences happened in a different dimension. And my body was in between. So it has experience from both dimensions stored in my body as well. And from that motion on, the notion of somatic and how the body relates, and I also saw my dance changing. My dance became a bit more demonic. Like, at first I was a very happy, I was a joker. I was a joke. I was like, and it suddenly, whenever I stepped into a frame, this demonic aspect came out, which was not necessarily demonic as an evil, but let's say my shadow started to take more shape. And not necessarily that I was in a dark place. My shadow is my protector. See, I was a small, skinny kid. And my shadow's opposite. It's big, loud. So I experienced so much fear that dance became my safe place. Dance was the only place where I could feel free. And I then found out that my dance was using certain movements, signatures that happened in my psychosis. So I could look at videos back a couple months before my psychosis, and I see myself doing movements which played a big role in my psychosis. And then it became clear to me my body was already sending me signals that something was going to happen. Oh, wow. And from with all that notion, the realization of, well, the body is like, it has its own intelligence. And I realized that a lot of the things that actually happened, my body was already knew, but tried to communicate that with me. And even as a dancer, I used my body, but I was taming my body. I was controlling my body rather than surrendering to my body and working together with my body. And from that, a whole journey, like trying to understand how this all functions together, was a necessity for survival. Being in a public space was my trigger. It happened at a party, a lot of people dancing. Mm-hmm. And when I had my psychosis, a lot of people, you're in a rave and you see somebody like, woo, going not so good. This happens naturally. But in my experience, I have 100 or 200 people suddenly eyeing me constantly. And that same awareness was my job as a performer, because I'm standing and I have 200 people looking at me. So that trigger, every time I performed, and that's why my demonic part came more up, because it felt like I meant protect. So I knew on that moment, I burned a lot of bridges for dance. To keep on dancing, I needed to heal this wound, this trauma. But I did not exactly knew, which is one of my biggest blessings, I did not knew that I had psychosis. So I did not label myself as sick right away. Thanks to my mom has always been my teacher of, you can do anything. If life beats you down, you can. Just work hard, learn. You can. My mom is my biggest example of resilience. So I knew, like, okay, if it's a problem in my head, and dance is a thing that keeps me sane, there should be a way of how I can rebalance that with dance and movement. And then it became a study of 2 or 3 years for different principles, for different modalities, basically just finding ways of how to heal myself out of necessity. I stopped with performing for 2 years.
How old were you at this time?
22, 23 in that period, yeah. And spirituality came in. I met my brother Nether, and we started on this journey of spirituality. I was learning about psychology, and I was reading things, and then I just asked myself, okay, I'm learning about the CP ego, the ID, Freud, et cetera, but how does this relate to the body? And through that research over years and years, that became eventually a method, and I started to developing certain exercises for myself, but I thought maybe it's a placebo effect. Maybe it's me just wanting to heal myself, you know. And then I invited a bunch of people together in a space and tried to do these exercises. And I have people from different walks of life, different dancers. So you have one dancer who's like very buff, like we call him like the IKEA closet. He's like very buff. Yes. And in the first exercise, weeping. And then we realized like, okay, this is really something. That group of people became the original formation of Amenti. And then from that notion, that first training that we did, 6, 7, 8 people realized like, yo, I've been dancing my whole life, but what we are doing here is something else. Yeah. And we decided for then the next 2 years, fanatically, I have no idea still how we did it, because we didn't get paid, but we trained 4 days a week, 10 to 6, just finding new things, getting feedback from different people. They all have different traumas. Some people got bullied, some people had this and this. And Leal was there just writing everything down. And after a process of 4 years, we felt like, okay, it's our responsibility now to give this to people as well. And that is actually how Amenti Movement came to be. Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful to hear the origin story, even though it's hectic.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, but like people see
I'm
this.
thankful. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as you said yesterday or 2 days ago, you're like psychosis for some, spiritual awakening for others. Like for the vision that I was getting when you were saying that story was you were just the chosen person that Spirit was like, you know what, this method is going to come through you, and the initiation for you to see if you're ready is this incredibly difficult situation, which you were like, let's go.
I had to experience a form of ego death in order. Because my old me would never be at space to do this.
And then got like reverse engineering, been like, what is this actually? Exactly. And again, it's the rose from the cement, like the beauty in the pain. And this is a psychosomatic movement method.
Yes.
Rooted in, like as you said, Jungian psychology, somatics. What else?
We work with Mesoamerican plant medicine, but Eastern spirituality, Kemetic principles, laws of Ma'at, we hold in as well. And in the global consciousness scene, we miss something. Specifically, Africa's missing, which we practice a form of African embodiment, which is hip-hop is the seed of African embodiment. Hip-hop is a portal. And so we combine like kind of these 4 directions as well. See, in the West, we have studied the mind. Yay, young, woof. I mean, we understand the psyche, we understand this and this. The global South understood embodiment though. They understood how it is to connect with nature through the body. Plant medicine comes from a different part of the world as well. And Eastern spirituality. And we believe that the point of it all is to kind of, not just to mix and appropriate things as well, but the point of it all is that all of these different aspects, in essence, tell the same thing. And we are a generation that has access to all of this information. We are the evolution of our ancestors as well. So we are meant to absorb a lot more information than from different sources as well. That's why we have the internet, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also our responsibility to appreciate and not to just appropriate things, to honor our ancestors as well. One of my favorite quotes is that we are future ancestors. I am a future ancestor, so I have to act accordingly. And that quote is something I abide for on a daily basis. Like, okay, you know, in 50 years' time, in 100 years' time, I am an ancestor to my kin. So how would they refer to me? What choices did I make? Am I a source of inspiration? Like, hey, Ancestor Gilles really did something and pop. Or you know.
Gilles who?
Yes, exactly.
Wow, and I love like they're pulling from, like cross-pollinating from so many different parts of the globe at different times as well, like Eastern, like it's ancient.
Yeah.
Because if we're trying to come back to the true story, which is beneath the color of my skin, the shape of my eyes, that all these things, we're all the same underneath.
Exactly.
So by looking and again, reverse engineering, well, what's like, you know, why is your psyche like this? Why is your body like this? And that'll allow us to uncover what is truly behind it, which we all can access if shown.
Yeah.
Woo! Wow. Yeah. Okay. So 7 layers.
Yes.
I know we have a short period of time, so we're not going to go through them all.
Yeah.
If you can just like go through them, and then the question after is, what is actually? Yeah, can you go through them and I'll ask?
So let's do it.
Yeah, sure.
Layer of physicality.
Layer of sensations.
A layer of power.
Layer of connection.
A layer of vibration.
Layer of symbols.
And a layer of understanding.
And the elements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Earth.
Water.
Fire.
Air.
Sound.
Ether, light.
Thought.
Wow. If you were going to pick, I mean, I would love to go through them all, but if you were going to pick, maybe let's go to the Western society.
Yeah.
Which element do you feel like we need the most? Are we lacking? It's your brain.
Air.
Air.
Okay.
What's the air one again?
I would say no.
Yeah,
I get it.
I'm leaning towards that one.
Yes, but
I get why you say that
excessively.
one. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's
And
excessive.
they couldn't, like, they're the bridge, so.
Yes, but it's So in my opinion, this is where we nerd up about.
Yeah, this is great.
Like we discuss a lot of things. So
what are the 2 contenders? So air is, and what?
mine is air.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards fire.
So fire, air, and air being
the layer of connection. So
layer of
our
connection.
social identity.
and fire is.
Layer of power.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
I
can
get
see
it.
Yeah,
I get it both. I get it both.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's go. Let's fight it out.
Yeah, but your question was what we need the most.
As a Western culture,
Yeah, then I do get why you say layer of connection.
Because we are
for sure.
stuck.
Yes, that's yes. It's a
Society-wise,
different. Yeah.
we are stuck
Okay.
in the layer of power.
Yes, exactly.
Ego, the individual. But I also get what you're saying because we need to ascend that layer because that's why anger is such an important thing because we are actually in the era of anger. There's a lot of things that's happening in our life which we as society are actually angry about. The promises that our parents gave to us, like, hey, you can do this and do this, we find out that the world is a lie, that a lot of things are actually not true. However, in society, Western society, I believe there's empathy that is not there. The social awareness, understanding that if we have power, but I'm only using my power for myself. So I get, because we also need more healthy fire.
Yeah.
That's the thing, we need more healthy usage of power. Because dominance, once again, is using your power for the others. It is, it's not just equality, but it's, I forgot the other, equality and you got egal.
Not equity.
Equity. Yes, equity. Thank you.
nice,
Yes,
nice.
equity. Plus, instead of equality, you got equity. So actually building that everybody has a similar ability to experience life.
Is this fire?
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire is about actually giving power as well, using your power for the others. But the bridge that, in my opinion, that we need collectively is the West is in power. And look at the world now. It's all about the West. It's the minority of the world is in power. And the majority of the world is suffering, which is, for me, a textbook of egoistic use of power. I have money, I have means, I'm gonna use it. Capitalism is rooted in that system. Few, the majority is poor. If you look at other parts of the world, they are still like trying to survive, basically. And the whole new earth, personally, in my opinion, the whole fifth dimension, this is not necessarily up there. It's just a polar shift in dynamics of the world. And it's kind of happening right now. The West is losing. It's declining. We feel it in Europe. It is declining. And that's why Europe and the States are freaking out. And
Declining in what?
status, power, wealth. Asia, Africa. Basically, you can feel in Europe that we are now declining in terms of social stability, polarity, et cetera, which is natural because every empire has its downfall. And the West has been Western for a while. So I think in regards to empathy, we now live in a society that's very diverse. And you actually need to cultivate empathy to understand the other. For social dynamics and social movements are rising right now. And I think that sense is something that we need in the world a lot more. Love. And not just love, romantically love, but understanding that treating you as a part of myself, that is love. And that unity consciousness, that is that 5D, so to speak, is having this awareness that even though we come from different parts of life, we are still one race, one human race. And that view is why a lot of people are drawn into spirituality, which actually dissolves a part of their ego. But it has to do with the layer of connecting, also connecting to the earth, in that sense.
So the reconnection in a real true way rather than this connection from our phones or this like transactional connections, like this true connection. Yeah. How does air or the Amenti movement, that layer, how does that actually fill that gap and get us to truly connect?
I think one of the most important things from this layer is acceptance as well. A lot of us try to relate to each other by actually dissolving the self. And that's why it comes after the ego identity. You cannot be part of a community or group if you are not able to say no, because then you manipulate your way in a group. A group consists out of different individuals. There's no group without the individual. And what a lot of us tend to do is to move together and come together and become this gray blob instead of being a collective of different individuals. And I think when we practice that in the layer of connection, it's also about accepting the flaws and the strengths of the other without the need to wanting to change it or control it. It's also connects us with being open and to receive another person's opinion or thought way without discerning them into good or bad or taking it as your own. Your experience is your experience. I can be part of it, but your experience is not necessarily mine. And that allows people to flow with each other a lot more. It's one of the layers that often, when we do the inner work, for example, a 10-day immersion, we do 10 days in total, but there's like a weekend in between because people need to rest.
Between fire and air.
Yes.
These two.
Yeah. And usually we end up the first week with fire, which is And the second week, we start with air. Usually it's a completely different energy.
Different energy, yeah. Very much of a shift.
Yeah. People come together more and through understanding this wave to connect with each other becomes suddenly a lot more natural. A lot more natural.
It makes me think also of what you always talk about in fire, actually, when we talk about like the attachment versus the authenticity. And in fire, where they they really much work with their own sense of power and their own sense of right to act and having the right to say no to things or to change things. So basically being their I, their real I that they want to be. And when they have felt that and this power that they have, and also what we spoke about before, this like, it's very easy to blame life for what is happening, but bringing that responsibility and choice back to yourself. And then they feel that after 1 week, they step into that, they have a weekend breather. And then when they come in air and they come together, it just flows better. I feel like they have a stronger sense of who they are themselves, and therefore they can connect better to each other. And like you said, there's a bigger sense of empathy also for each other's whatever they're going through.
Oh, okay. So like the fire allows one to come to their true self by knowing themselves, knowing their spirit, their essence, and then having boundaries to actually detach from whatever they've been conditioned and things like that, and then taking that to air, which allows this true connection. And it's like our moment yesterday when you're like, cool, we've never danced together, and you pulled me in, and then we just worked with the breath, seeing each other's chests, and this is the somatic, I guess, physical exercise of what we're talking about, where we had never danced together. Everyone was watching. We just saw the breath, and then both like had our movement, but kind of like co-authored this story.
Exactly.
And for me, I do a lot of contact improv, which is the same thing where it's like the fire component can be the ecstatic dance, where you're like, cool, just like, what's my story? If no one was watching, I'm going to dance like this. While contact is the next step where it's like, cool, this is my story. Okay, hold that. Yeah. That's your story. Okay, how do we both hold and let go of that and create our own story that's only possible once we know our own story? And that's, I feel like, why we were able to connect, because we were listening. Yeah. And we couldn't have come to that if I didn't know me, and I'm like, I'll just be you. It's like, well, that actually doesn't work. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Shit. Oh man. Wow. And for me, it's like, it's really epic, because that's when magic happens, when people, because a few people after were like, how? But it's like, and for me, I actually witnessed you guys for the first time at Boone 2023. So we performed with Eclectica before you guys.
Yeah, the links are...
Yeah. And then so we got off stage and we were hearing all these like, and then we're like, what is this? I hadn't seen you guys before. So I went to the front, and then you were with, I forgot his names. Yeah. And you were doing your wall, and I actually didn't. I don't know if I believed it. I was like, this, and lifting each other's legs up. I was like, oh, this must be choreographed. And at the end,
nope.
Yeah, I couldn't conceive, because I hadn't opened up to that magic, because I hadn't fully even entered into this world. And now it's like free flow rapping. When people go, and I'm like, oh, surely they've memorized this. Yeah. But until you've touched that, okay, once you realize to get out of your own way and let go of yourself, something way deeper. Yeah. And that can be free flow rap. It can be like just movement dance. It can be Amenti coming through you. Shit. Oh, that's magic. Wow. Cool,
Hecka. Yes.
Okay. I mean, there's two parts I want to ask. Let's go this one. Okay. So you guys are traveling the world, and you're not going back for a year and a half. Yeah. From the outside, like I'm looking at this soul family. I'm like, this is a dream. Like, you guys have found this key that you know can support the remembering of the collective, and you get to travel the world to people that are willing and keen to come to this. What are the challenges? Let's go to spicy. What are the struggles of this? Because from the outside, it's a romanticized idea. Yeah. I'm like, that's what I want to do.
Before I forget it, I just want to give you because you mentioned something very good. You said the key, which is actually very closely tied to Amenti. See, actually, the name of Amenti came through learning the Emerald Tablets. And
what tablets?
The Emerald Tablets. It's like a ancient scripture that Thoth, the Egyptian deity Thoth, have passed on. You can just Google it up. It's very interesting.
This is in your 4 years of research?
Yes. And one of those, the chapters are described in different keys. And in the key of magic is where, and I wrote that key. I think it was the first key I wrote. That was there and present. It was also present there. That was the first key I wrote. And the name Amenti was the first time I read it. And I saw that name, and it resonated so deeply that I started crying. It felt like it felt like I knew this text, scripture. Like I found an old journal, like 40 years ago or something. And I just started crying. And from that notion, I knew, okay, Amenti, we need to bring something back with the knowledge of Amenti, basically. And you just had to say the key. So I just had to point you out to that one because the key of magic was literally connected to. And I also knew that the key of magic also lies in the collective, to togetherness. There might be one person leading, but there's always, everything that's manifested is a co-creation. But there might be 1, 2 people leading it, but there's always a group involved.
For me, it's like you going into your story, how you were in this trauma and this conditioning and you healing yourself and realizing, oh, that's actually just, that can heal all. And for me, it's like the storytellers that you were asking about, this school that I'm creating.
Yeah.
It's for me, it came from my fracture.
Exactly.
Being in heartbreak and be like, how do I, and I started moving and dancing and being like, oh, this is my medicine. And then exploring, like building that and actually realizing, oh, it's actually, I mean, we're so different, but we're all the same.
Yes, exactly.
It's the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what's also powerful was I saw a lot of projects coming in, and I see on Instagram, I see this focus on the individual, like that person. But I just did not see a collective of people doing it. Like one of the few people who really did it was Wu-Tang Clan. Like that movement, like having a group of people, like that did something. Also with the topics that they were rapping about and everything, but I just knew there was a collective consciousness which allowed people, they were with 12 or 30 people, but I connected with 2 or 3 the most. And that magic was something that I knew, like, okay, we need to, this is missing. I don't see much collectives or groups that are actually doing it together. So Amenti was born under that principle, and the challenges that we face are also our biggest teachers, and it differs per person because all of us are conditioned to somewhere believe in this illusion of separation. Somewhere we all have this idea or wounds that we do not deserve love. Even though we got what it is that we wanted, that's the emotion. We got what it is that we wanted, but there's still a part of us that's still defying that. It's like this believing, nah, this can't be true. And it differs per person. For me personally, I had to accept that my role as a leader, even in this group, I will always have a bit more distance. They will be closer with each other than with me. Which is a tough cookie.
¿Por qué?
It's my role. I need to make also the tough decisions.
So the distance is because you might have to choose a way that isn't in alignment with them.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to be like, okay, hey, we have an opportunity. I can only take 4 people with. And we were 12, for example. So, even this trip, hey, let's go. Let's go travel the world. Not everybody could come with. And I am also the receiving end of that shadow, of that, am I not good enough, etc., etc. So I also had, it's also healthy for me to have a certain distance with them and actually use my power for them to connect more as well. And that went through ups and lows because I also want to be the most connected with, but I have one of the highest responsibilities. And practicing mudita, empathic joy, helps me in that.
Mudita.
Mudita. Empathic joy. Also comes from polyamory, from God. Like have seeing them bond and experiencing something beautiful without me actually brings me joy. So I had to practice mudita so I can facilitate a frame or an experience for them that maybe I'm not in the center of it. And they are. But seeing their connection coming together is actually a bigger benefit for the collective as a whole. And that was my personal challenge. And sometimes also for them because they want to connect with me. Like, yeah, you're big bro, you're big bro. And sometimes I have to be like, I know, for this healthy dynamic because we also work together.
And it's the bigger vision. It's like, for me, in my experience, it's like I can feel, if I'm going to use the terminology, like maiden to mother.
Yeah.
Like those archetypes. Well, maiden, it's just like, yeah, the teenage, like, yes, look at me. Like, I want to go everywhere, have fun.
Yes.
But then now, as I'm maturing and I'm, getting these keys, these ideas and these things that I want to bring into reality and be of service, it's requiring me to embody the mother more, which isn't as fun at times.
No,
it's
exactly.
but it's like I think the maiden is like this like quick, dopamine woo, while the mother is this like slower, subtle fulfillment.
Yes.
But it requires this slowing down to the subtleties to be like, oh, actually, it might not be for me, but it's like I'm birthing something for something bigger.
Exactly.
And that's the initiation again of embodying what you are saying, where it's not about I.
Yeah.
It's a collective.
Yeah.
Which brings it again, I have to think now back to the fire and the air. Like how do we use our power? How do we use the sense of responsibility, the individual in the collective? And like Gilles said, like we all come from different conditionings, different experiences. We come in Amenti with our own, let's say, baggage. So you have these like onderling, like dynamics in between individuals that you're working with and that you're growing in. And then there's also you as an individual. We talk about Amenti as like a ship. Like, what do you bring to the ship? Like,
she's a big One Piece fan.
Yeah, you already said we're dorks. We're on this ship, and like Gilles said, like, I mean, I can speak only for myself, but like you dream of something and then you get it in your hands and then it's like, fuck, I have it in my hands. Like, what am I gonna do with it now? And like you beautifully said as well, and this is also topics that we talk about, like going into motherhood, like how do you, if you have it in your hands, how are you gonna hold that responsibility to actually contribute and to actually make it grow? And that's a whole process in itself as well. And as the ship is growing, we as individuals have to grow as well to keep this ship healthy and sailing, so to say. So it's a process. So we can imagine that from the outside it looks like this, like whoa, and it is like it's a fucking blessing. Like we're working, and we're friends. We're like a fam. We're a squad. It's really something not to take for granted, and we are very aware that this is something that a lot of people dream of, this wanting to belong to something that is bigger than yourself, and that you look into the same direction. This is what I dreamt of as a little kid. As a little girl, I always felt in some way a bit alone-ish. And now I have it, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to fuck it up, So it's a very interesting dynamic of how to work with that. So.
Oh, I love that where it's like the creation of the baby itself is like, it expands. Like Amenti's its own 9-year-old fire woman, and that's testing you to grow and expand to meet this. For people like, for example, myself creating storytellers, feeling the initiation of like my ego trying to come in, or moments of scarcity, being like, oh, like inflation's going up, everything's rising prices. I'm going to put all my effort into this creative soul project. So all these things and me having to expand to hold that for other people doing their own soul service, heart-led business project, whatever. What would be your advice to help people continue this? Because that's how the world is going to change.
My biggest advice that I can give to people is also one of the biggest advice I give to myself. We manifest as we are. And sometimes Amenti is a direct reflection of how I am as a leadership, but also how we are as a collective, the collective energy. in our method, we have a lot of modalities in which we reflect, also with the layers. So, meaning if I was, for example, deficient in my earth, stability, financial, health, a physical place, and everything, which I grew up as very deficient, surviving, it will directly reflect on how Amenti as a business would be operating. Scarcity, for example, that's how I grew up in. But also, in other dimensions, if I overly focus, have an excessive heart space, overly focus upon other people and their wishes and wants, I put them first, even in my business, which has happened, because I've suffered from burnout. See, I've been focusing a lot, okay, you need this, okay, we do this, use this, and I didn't have energy left for the things that I wanted to do. And that directly affects Amenti as well. Because if the fire starter gets a burnout, it directly reflects the collective. So I connected with often, when we work with the layers, if you think about the chakras or energy and elements, there's like two streams going. And the one stream which most people know is the path of liberation that goes from top from the bottom to the top. You start with earth and it goes up, for example. Where we become, from a physical person, we become more liberated. We connect with the universe. We connect with spirit and everything, and we expand. However, there's also a second path. It's called the path of manifestation. It's the path of the avatar, for example, on which they bring heaven to earth. So you bring something there, here. So, for example, if I can use your analogy as an example, the idea of storytellers, you're in your you're in your zone, which you know why. You're in your zone, and after that zone came this realization of, wait, this idea, thought comes in. Maybe I can cultivate or manifest a school where a lot of these aspects come together. And you have this idea, stops here. You go to bed. You start dreaming about it. You start visualizing things. Maybe there's a building, there's a this, there's a spaceship, there's a this, there's a this, there's a this, this. Yes, there's a ship. You start visualizing things, and it's starting. Let's say it's starting to sink down a bit. And after that process, you have this idea, you have this visuals aspect, you get excited, and what comes naturally, you want to share that. So you start speaking about it with people, you get feedback, etc., 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 etc. You also start to make connections with people. You're like, oh, that's a dope idea, this and this. And from that point on, when you make connections with people, you start to develop a team, social dynamic. Okay, I want to contribute to your manifestation.
This is exactly what happened.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So then you come in that realm. And then you have your team. And then comes this moment of, okay, we need to manifest this. So this fire component comes in. Okay, we need to do a bit more difficult things. We need to make decisions, make choices. Spaceship or school. So you have to say no to things. And this is where a lot of people get stuck in the manifestations, because reality is limited. Life will give you no's. And how we navigate that, how we keep our fire going, is a direct reflection of that. So you will start to meet your first blockages or limitations. Because up there, in dream world, there's no limitations. Okay, I need to have this first. I have to have this. You start to have dynamics with people. Some conflict starts to rise up. Ego starts up. I don't like your leadership. Like, bruh, it came from her, etc., etc. So after that process happened, and you've been keeping on, which is also an important aspect, becomes the enjoyment of it. You start to see the first fruits of the labor you put in. You have your first sessions, you see the people coming in, and you start to enjoy it, which is also an important aspect, because if you don't enjoy our manifestations, there's no nourishment, there's no continuation of
Won't be
it.
sustainable.
It's not sustainable indeed. And then it follows the last phase, for example, the physical full manifestation, which is not a finished act, because then it requires to be rooted, finances, stability, location, etc., and keeping that on as well. I adopt this manifestation stream as this is my main tool of manifestation, because I can just directly see where there is a blockage in which of one of those aspects. In every production that I do, in every new thing that I manifest, I just go through these 7 steps.
You created it?
No. It's just these 7 steps.
Seven.
It's because one of the beautiful things that I learned is that if I am, for example, excessively in my airspace, it also reflects in my way of manifesting things.
Yeah.
I will manifest things that other people want.
Is air the one that you're in the mind for?
No,
visualizing?
the collective space, for example. But if I have a hard time envisioning things, there's a blockage in that aspect. So I have an idea, but I cannot envision things. If I have a hard time speaking, I can never get feedback from people. So it blocks in this area. And basically what I've learned is by being able, so this connection between those two things is something I'm not sure if I created, I have not seen it, but that's why I call myself the grid. I just make connection between existing things.
I was wondering about that. Okay.
Yes. So I'm not sure if it is something I created. I've not seen it before, but I just made a connection with how I am in my own being, psychologically, spiritually. The flaws and strengths that I have directly correlate to how I manifest. So if I am burned out, that means I have a 2-week fire in normal life as well. And I think a lot of people separate their business or how they manifest with their being. And then they get stumbled upon things and like, why is this not working? If you have a hard time trusting people and you have a closed off heart space, it will be very hard to find a team.
And for example, if you don't trust or have confidence in yourself, you can't make the choices to get through that one.
And then you have to make difficult choices. Is this person fit for storytellers or not? I do not dare to say no. You know what? Yes. And then something happens. You're like, I should have said no.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, also after it's been manifested, is something that we reflect upon. And next to the me as a being and next to how I manifest, when we work together, there's also a collective, let's say, reading. So collectively, for example, we were last year excessively too much energy in Earth. We were stable. We were selling out. We had our studio. Everything was good. We just did an immersion. It sells out. Easy, very comfortable. Yeah. And I grew from scarcity. So my system is freaking out. What the hell? This is boring as hell. Where's the growth? Where's the growth? And I just realized I saw us going more and more in comfort. And I just knew in order to grow, sometimes we need to, we have this nice little pot here. Our roots were going too big. We need to branch out and have a bigger pot, basically. And so there's also collective consciousness that you can reflect upon. Like, are we too fiery as a group in general? Or do we not speak out as much? Do we not create as much? So those 3 levels of me as a person, normal life, me as my manifester, but also the collective. And if we do a reading through all these 7 layers, how you reflect, because the emphasis and the point is to be balanced. You can navigate.
And I feel like that is related to the pathway to freedom, because the knowledge or the self-awareness of these layers allows you to make the choice to almost like diagnose where in my life am I lacking individually and as a collective or all these things. And like that knowledge And power allows you to be like, oh, I'm really not speaking my truth.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's my choice, and that's my responsibility to now, okay, what
Yes.
rituals, practices, people can I bring in to actually support that? That's going to lead to the freedom and...
Yes.
You got it.
Yes.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
You got it. Yeah.
All right, respecting your time, because I know y'all are tired. We're going to go lightning round. So quick questions.
Yeah.
If you were going to get one message out to every single mobile phone on this planet, what would the message be?
Damn. Whoa. That's a really good. Okay. If you have one, shoot. I'm thinking.
I know, I do.
Y'all
I-
get
I-
two
I know-
messages.
I know, I do. I'm
One.
waiting for you.
Oh.
I know mine. I'm like,
Shoot, I'm thinking still.
I got you.
Yeah.
The only way
Okay. Yeah.
is truth, or the only way is through.
And there's a link to him then.
Exactly.
The only way
It's
is
truth.
The
The only way is through. And usually, when we are stuck in something, we don't want to face the truth, so we have to face it through it. And I think honesty and the truth is something a lot more scarce than we actually truly like to admit. It's natural. Society lied to us for a lot. And I think a lot of people, and the suffering comes from a lack of being honest with each other, honest towards yourself. And it's like I practice radical honesty. We practice radical honesty in our relationship as well. And it's a practice because we are so wired to lie. We lie so easily, like we cannot even recognize it. And I think if we all would just be a bit more honest towards each other, but also towards ourselves, we can go through a lot of the problems which we find like we can't. Caroline Myss, amazing author, I can recommend it. Quote is, liars do not heal. Liars do not heal. You can eat as healthy as you can. You can be full keto, just eat lettuce each day. But if you, on a daily basis, keep lying to people, it's a betrayal to your own system. And energetically, you are speaking something out that is against your being. And that is an attack on the self, which causes dis-ease, blockages, and a lot of other things. So the only way is truth, and the only way is through.
Full stop. From that, if everyone would try one practice, like an embodiment, this is all like, oh yeah, understanding knowledge, for that you'll know the practical stuff. What's one practice everyone can do at home?
Radical honesty.
Radical honesty.
Basically, have a
Right.
journal. Every time you caught yourself getting a lie, just write the time and the why. How are you doing? I'm good. Why? Because and you start to decipher how many times you lie on a day unconsciously.
And what's one practice people can access? Because that's someone being aware of the lie. For someone to access the wisdom of their body, what's one practice that they can do?
To me, it's the same thing. yeah, still honesty, because your body knows. You feel it when you lie. You feel when you lie. Some people also lie when you get a bit of adrenaline because you're doing something that you actually know is not supposed to. So I think a lot of people, you can have a way of understanding that you lie, but the majority of us don't actually know logically when we're lying. Is we feel it. We feel this sense of, I call it like a baby betrayal. And that little notion, if you just learn how to identify that, is one of the biggest compasses to liberation. So that's for me.
I have my message, my text
Yes,
message,
yes.
and I have my my text message would be you always have a choice. That would be my my reminder, because I feel like I said before, I feel like a lot of people blame external things for their lives or for the things that they're not doing yet. And I think if people, honesty comes back in this as well, have a more honest look also to themselves, where they are lacking, where they are blocking things, where they are lying, where they are, for whatever reason, not doing what they want to do or supposed to do, and take their responsibility and stay aware that I have a choice in this. I think that will change a lot of things. And it links very much also to the honesty thing. And to come back to the other thing that you said, I would say in whatever way, connect to your body, like get into some sort of connection with your senses. Because I feel like if you have a stronger body awareness of the senses, that the sensations that are happening in your body, then you can also, even if you're not aware of it in the mind, for example, with the lying, I can feel something in my body coming up. I can feel that for example, my stomach is hurting. Why is my stomach hurting now? There's nothing, okay, then there must be something going on. So if you get more aware of these sensations in the body, they can give you cues as well when something's up that you can listen to as a extra aid to the brain.
And it's all a choice to that message. And to get to choice is knowledge and power. One of the final questions. What's one resource, like a book, a podcast, something that people can consume that will help them start their journey of knowledge? Amenti MoveMeant. Yeah. Link in show notes.
I would say Caroline Myss, Anatomy of the Spirit. That book. See, Caroline Myss is one of my personal favorite teachers, because she makes the connection between psychology and different chakras, etc., as well. However, what I appreciate from her, other teacher, for example, Teal Swan, for example, I have a lot of women teachers actually.
Nice.
To look up to. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Like this.
But they have this direct, cutthroat way of teaching. Like, they don't bullshit around. And it's something that is inspiring for me. It's also inspiring for a lot of other women as well. But Caroline Myss is so honest that it's sometimes, not in my experience, not painful.
Confronting.
But I'm like, ooh, that's like a different language that we're used to. So from that book, also the notion of lies do not heal. Like, you need to be able to be honest, or else you do not heal from it. You can do as many ayahuascas or breathwork ceremonies, whatever, but if you cannot just be honest and face the confrontation of the things that you are doing, it has no point. And just how she writes is so clear, so simple. And that's one of the things that I also, this is how I teach as well. Like, I can go very in-depth in psychological components and links, but I knew, like, in that psychosis moment, Freud was not going to save me. I needed something tangible in that moment. Like, when I feel triggered, I don't like, Freud, you're struggling with your super ego. Joe, you need to earth yourself. Your earth is moving away. I needed something easy, simple,
Come back
tangible.
to the body.
Yes, like, I can go into. And Caroline Myss writes exactly in that same way. Also her webinars, and like, it reminds me a bit of my grandmother. I think that's the reason why. My grandmother was like the village leader, and was very, like, I was intimidated by her. And she was like very pop, pop. So I think that resonates deeply with me. So Caroline Myss,
Anatomy of Spirit. Write it down, folks.
Yes.
Done.
Yeah, Teal Swan was the person that came to mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very powerful speaker.
And on the train of lying, the book Lying by Sam Harris. It's an audiobook. It's like an hour and a half. And it made me so aware. I was like, I don't lie.
Yeah, this is
And because for me, I was like, lying's a bad thing. But if I'm lying to help you, that's okay. It's still lying, bro.
Yes.
And it's actually deriving them of the opportunity to choose truth in their own way. It just perpetuates this like conditioned mind. Yeah, that's a good one. And it's super quick. Sam Harris.
Sam Harris.
Okay.
Lying. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
All right. The final question that I always ask, and you can answer it individually and or as a mentee, is to live a meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. What does that mean?
To be courageous. To be able to do things that requires courage.
To be in connection. That's what I would say. With yourself and with the people that you love. Proactively.
I think both of them, the thread is like radical honesty with truth. And it's just the embodiment of that.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. Wow. And just because I know everyone is asking through me, when are you coming back to Melbourne?
Okay.
Yeah, sell it. We're going to sell out.
I personally think, I will hope.
Looking at it.
She's like siding me.
November?
Oh, the other way around.
Nice. November. Yeah, I think beginning of November. I think it will be beginning of November, and I think it will be the beginning of November. Because end of November, we are going to go away. We are going to step back into our dieta. We go to Peru for an 11-day ayahuasca dieta. We did one in 2018, 19. You were like,
She's a puppet
who?
master.
Yes. We did one in 2019, and we feel like it's time to rejuvenate our magic and our connection, and we did it as well as a collective as well. So we're going to do it together. That's right.
5 of you.
No.
12.
11, 12
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to do it as a group.
Oh.
So I think that will be a good closer of this year, basically, because then we go to Costa Rica and we have our retreat, regenerative being in December. But to close it off, 2018. But to close it off, I think Melbourne would be an amazing finisher as well.
We can, we'll hold you before you, before I hold you.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah,
okay. And anything else you want to share for people, the retreats or anything?
Well, in December we have our retreat, regenerative being, a 7-day retreat in the beautiful nature of Costa Rica in collaboration with Brave Earth. Also an incredible tribe of people to check off. They are, you will like them, Brave Earth.
Okay, great.
We've got some immersions coming up. We do our Transforming Anger tour for Europe in the summer. We also are building up online possibilities for people to connect with. So we're going to build our online platform and basically create also a virtual space for people to come together as well, because that's needed. But yeah, we are keeping on, basically.
This 9-year-old fire is just...
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tamara and Gilles. Like, seriously, so grateful for you guys to not just come to Melbourne, to be in this space and for people to hear more about your story. Because, you know, again, from the outside, it's like, oh, yeah, this.
Yeah.
But there's actually, it's like the iceberg.
Yeah.
There's so much more. So thank you. I can't
Thank
wait
you
to see
for
you in
having
November.
us. And thank you for this beautiful exchange.
Yeah.
For real.
Muchas gracias.